Hi, welcome to Hey Parents, Let's Chat. I am Jess Hunt. I wanted to have a conversation with two teacher friends who are kindergarten teachers to just have a conversation about what we can do to help get our kids ready for kindergarten. And they shared some great strategies. And some of our conversation even popped into some of the older grades and school age level kids. So I hope that you enjoy. And here's my chat with Janelle and Melissa. So I am here today having a chat with my two teacher friends, Janelle and Melissa. And our focus for our chat today is going to be about how we as parents can help our kids be successful in a kindergarten classroom. Like, what do we as parents need to do to prepare our kids for school? And I'm going to apologize right up front because we have a thunderstorm happening right now. And so if you hear thunder in the background, that's what that is. And so let's just meet our teachers really quick just to find out, like, do you guys even get an experience with children? What do you have for experience? Janelle, let's start with you.
I have been teaching now for about 13 years, most of my time in kindergarten, but I've also spent a year in first grade, and I have 3 children of my own, so I'd say I have lots of experience with children.
And your kids are pretty young, right? Like, how old is your oldest?
8, 6, and 4. So I'm right in the thick of it all right now.
Yeah, you sure are. Beautiful. And so, Melissa, tell us a little bit about your background.
Taught nursery school for 27 years, and then I moved into the public school system and have taught kindergarten now for my 6th year.
Perfect. So clearly between these two ladies, there's lots of experience with the young kids. And I happen to work in the same area of the school with them, and I have seen them in action, and they are absolutely fabulous with kids. Great resources. Kindergarten teachers just have so much information to help parents with their kids academically and socially. And I feel like there's 2 different categories in my mind. There's like, what do the kids need to know socially, and what do they need to know academically? And so let's just start with which do you think is most important? Academic, social?
Well, I think they both really work hand in hand when kids enter kindergarten. I think with the academics, I think when some parents hear academics, they think that their child needs to know, the alphabet, how to write their name, like all of these things. And it's great to have a lot of exposure to those things, but that's a lot of what we do in kindergarten. We teach kids all of those things.
And I think that's hard for a lot of parents because a lot of parents, they are thinking, should I be teaching them how to write? Should I be doing flashcards every single day? And then I also wonder, well, maybe I should be focusing on, do my kids know how to share? Do my kids know how to be patient and wait in line? And so I want to talk about, like, as parents, what should we be doing to help our kids be successful in school? So let's start with the academics. Like, is it okay if my kid doesn't know how to write or read? Like,
we do not expect kids to come into kindergarten knowing how to write or read. Those are definitely things that we teach in kindergarten. It's more, I think, about the exposure, reading books with your kids, exposing them to books, exposing them to different writing utensils and different materials that we use. Sometimes I've had parents come in and they're like, oh, they can't use scissors. And I'm like, well, that's what we're here for. This is kindergarten, and we're going to teach them how to use scissors because we need to know how to use scissors in kindergarten, really in life, right? So I think just giving your child an opportunity to explore those under supervision, under guidance, and really teaching them how to do it. And kids as young as 3 years old, 2 years old can use those things. They can use scissors. They can use pencils if they're taught how to use them, just like anything else you teach your child.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember having my kids with, crayons. We tried to do something artistic every single week so that they were, figuring out colored pencils, markers, crayons, paint, all of those things, glue sticks,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all of those things. And so, what about math and counting, and is recognizing a number something I should be focusing on, or and I'm asking these questions because I when my kids were younger, I thought I was doing all of the right things. My kids could make muffins by the time they were 3, and that was all awesome. And we read books, we did all of these things, and I didn't focus on the flashcards, and I didn't focus. And so then I thought, are my kids now am I doing a disservice to them because I've not done all of those things? But I thought it was more important to focus on my kids know how to share, my kids know how to win and lose gracefully. My kids, we would go to the grocery store, they know how to wait in line. And we would practice our colors, do we want a red apple or a green apple? But there's also so much more expected of kindergartners now. So with numbers, is number ID okay? Should they know how to add and subtract?
I think, all that is helpful, but learning at home should not happen with a workbook. It always makes me really sad when I have parents tell me, oh, they already know their letters. I buy them a workbook, at the grocery store, and we're working on that every day. I don't feel that's how it should be done at home. I think most of it should be done through the exposure of reading, and talking. The more conversations they have, the more authentic it will be. It will all make sense to them. Just knowing how to recognize a number 7 is just not going to make sense unless it's in context somehow.
Yeah, and you can make those authentic learning experiences with your kids at home, by baking with them, or let's count the number of stairs. So it's not oh, we're going to sit down and do work right now. It's I'm writing, or I'm reading a recipe. Do you see the letter A? If your name starts with an A, and just making it authentic and fun, and just giving kids the reins of oh, do you think you can do this? And a lot of times they can. If we give kids the opportunity, they really want to learn. They want to learn how to be grown-ups. They want to learn how to do all those big things. It's just giving them those opportunities that can do that for them.
Yeah, it is pretty empowering when they're able to try new things that they see the bigger kids do or their parents do. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about, socially. Talk to me about what is super important and helpful that your kids know before getting to kindergarten. How to share, how to lose, how to play a game, how to take turns. What do you find is the most important? Not the most important, but the top 3. Or anything that's most important to you.
I think all of those that you just mentioned are really important. Kids can't always win a game. I remember playing with my daughter when she was really little, and for a long time she stopped playing games because she did not want to lose. But sometimes that just happens, and you have to learn how to lose, graciously, and it's a game, and have fun with it. But those are all really important things to know how to do. Sharing for sure.
And I think setting up those expectations with your kids prior to doing it, and then being super transparent with your kids about this is why we play the game. Yes, you lost, but it was fun. Didn't we have fun? We play games for fun, and sometimes you're going to lose, and sometimes you're going to win. And I think just making it joyful and fun, and also making sure siblings or the people that are playing with you are also under similar understanding. So it's not they're not teasing, because that can set a really negative perception of kids with games.
And going back to when you were talking about the number sense and recognizing numbers, playing games is the best thing that you can do for your kids. When they have the dice, and when they have to move their piece so many spots. That really makes it authentic for them and enjoyable, and they don't even know they're learning. They're just playing a game with mom or dad. And
right, and so if they move 5 spots, 1,
Exactly.
2, 3, 4, 5, and they might not even realize they're learning, but if they played that at home, they might make that connection without even realizing it once they're in school. And you talk about 5 or moving 5 steps or whatever.
I mean, if they have just a workbook in front of them that they bought at a grocery store, it's going to put a very negative connotation on what school means to them. But they can learn those things in a fun way by playing games.
Very
I think
true.
It's really important.
Very true. Yeah, I completely agree.
Not to mention the bond that they make,
Right.
with their parents or their siblings
Yes.
as they continue to.
Playing games, doing puzzles, reading together, like all of those things are just such simple things that I think can be overlooked because you think you have to do this grand thing, but kids thrive from like this simplest experiences.
So I feel like puzzles are like an outdated thing that people just don't do as much anymore. And as a math teacher, and I teach 5th grade and I specialize in math, I talk all the time about how math is like taking pieces of a puzzle and putting them together. And I really wish that kids spent more time just putting puzzles together, because there's a lot of connections between math and puzzles and just all of that learning that goes along with it. So puzzles, that's a great example.
And I know over the past few years, we've really took time to really have puzzles available for kids to use, and they gravitate towards them. And I think in this age when there's like these electronics and these, video games and things that make noise, that we feel like those are going to be more engaging. But seeing a child's face complete a puzzle for the first time, which we've experienced in kindergarten more times than I can count. I mean, it's magic. I mean, even like a 24-piece puzzle, even the little ones are just like, look what I just did. Like they put something together. And man, the transfer of puzzles into packing a car, putting away your clothes, packing your backpack, putting your things back in your lunchbox, like all of that, weaves together, for them to be able to be successful in all of those different things.
I completely agree.
Now, when I made the transition from nursery school to kindergarten, I sold a lot of my more simple puzzles in yard sales, thinking I wouldn't need, 12-piece puzzles in kindergarten. And I was very surprised to find that I really do, because the kids did not have the experience doing puzzles that, some of the kids I had had before, because we spent so much time doing them in nursery school. And then when I moved to kindergarten, they just did not have those same types of skills.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like puzzles are just one of those things that you just don't see as much anymore. And the hands-on puzzles, not the technology puzzles,
Right.
the ones where you're actually like manipulating the pieces. I just think that it's a great activity for kids.
And certainly when you're starting with like the younger ones, you might want to make the pieces so it's a little more easy, so they can have that success. Like I've done that with kids, like, oh, maybe if I just put them all close to where they need to go, like, because once they buy into it, it's like I want to do another puzzle, I want to do it again, I want to do it again.
Yeah, and I feel like for parents, and I'm going to put my teacher hat on right now, because all of these hands-on activities are so super important to do with your kids while they're at home, and not even like telling them how to do things, just letting them explore with puzzles or explore with scissors, because even as a 5th grade teacher, we'll have lots of activities where their scissor skills, they're not fabulous. And I feel like that's something that kids just don't do as much of at home anymore. And so getting it back to, as I just wanted to think about your comment about games and your explicit teaching in them of, what it's like to win and lose and take turns, giving them phrases and language to use when they lose or when they win is another thing that I was thinking about too, because you want to be a good friend when you're in kindergarten. And if, you as a teacher are over here teaching and you've got 3 different tables going on, you don't want to have to get up and go referee a wrestling match over, a loss or a game or, missing a turn or whatever. So can you guys think of anything else socially before I ask my next question? Because I wanted to ask you guys about SNAP.
Well, and I think you can also talk to your kids about like, oh, you won that game, how does it feel? And like really just my kids, I think maybe I'm too much, because I just ask them all these questions all the time, like, how did it make you feel when you won? How did it make you feel when you lost? But look, you said congratulations. how did that make you feel? Even though you lost, you said congratulations, and like we do bucket filling and we talk about it all the time, but those are phrases my own children know well, because I'm like, yeah, it felt good to say congratulations to somebody else. And I think once they recognize that, like, yeah, that did feel pretty good. Like, I don't always need to win, but I can still feel good about, playing the game and hanging out with my new friend. And I think recognizing that is huge. And another thing that you had just mentioned was, teaching kids how to respond and how to talk. I know sometimes, like, kids will get in arguments, and it's like, well, what do you say? And the kid will stand there, and they don't know what to say because they're kids. And I think often we expect kids to act like adults, but they're kids, so they don't have the words like we do. So, I'll sit right down with them and say good game, even if they struggle with it, like giving the kids the words to say, and they'll be like, okay, I don't have to think about what to say. They're telling me what to say. And some kids, they don't know how to say I'm sorry. They don't know how to say congratulations. Like getting down and say congratulations to them. Like they won. Like I think it's just super important not to expect kids to like come up because they got so much going on. They're like, I'm playing this game. I'm doing this. What's for snack? Where's my mom? That sometimes they just don't know.
That's legit. That happens.
Think about how our brains work. Like we're, on overdrive all the time. It
right.
feels like
And it's not on top of that, they also have the emotional reaction that they're also internalizing at the same time. And like, I'm still upset that I lost. But you want me to congratulate this kid? So even maybe giving some, options, you could say good game, you could say congratulations, you can say I can't wait to play next time. But offering the explicit language so that, they're able to win and lose at home while practicing with their siblings, and be able to do it while being a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like being a kind, good friend is super important for kids to learn above all else.
Absolutely. And we are modeling for that all the time as teachers, as parents, right? Our kids, what's that old phrase? Do as I say, not as I do, but we all know what happens. They do what you do. They say what you say. Like so many times we hear kids talk and we're like, that kind of doesn't sound like something, like that sounds like something a grown-up would have said. And as the year trickles in, you hear the kids starting to act like the teacher. Like they will help the other kids, but they'll use the language that we're using. So being mindful of that, I think, is huge because whatever you say, your kids are going to come into school and say. And there'll be things that your kids might come home with that they hear the teacher saying too, and they might say, oh, well, that's what she says, or, that's what I hear. You might recognize it. I know sometimes my kids say things, and I'm like, who said that to you? Like, you can kind of tell when they're trying to mimic the grown-up talk, because, again, they're learning to be grown-ups.
I think the whole key is just the oral language that's involved in the personal interactions.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just expect your children at home to go play and expect them to learn how to share and take turns. You have to be an active participant and be a model and use that language and practice it and be really involved and, put your own phone down so that you can, really fully participate in what you're, the play that you're doing with your children.
Right.
Because it is so important.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. As much as we might cringe every time Candyland is pulled out, we really do need to be playing Candyland with our kids. So as they're listening and they're learning from others, there's going to be times when our little ones are going to start arguing, or they might say no to us. And I just want to, at home, we can deal with when a kid says no to us, and at home we might have certain consequences. We might have, we're going to process with the kid. My kid might have timeout, and every parent handles that a little bit differently. But I do feel like there are some kids that come into school and they are very freely going to say no. And I feel like there are some parents with a 5-year-old, if you're at home and you're allowing a kid to say no to you, you're not helping them to be successful in the classroom or even as they grow up into adulthood. Mm-hmm. Because when you go to work, you can't just say no when your boss asks you to take a half an hour lunch and you want to take a 1 hour. You just can't do that. So talk to me a little bit about, what should we be doing as parents so that our kids come to school and can function without getting in trouble You know, like what happens when a kid says no or argues with you? You know, you've got 20 kids that you're in charge of, and if all of them start chirping no, 10 different of them at one time, how are we going to get any work done?
Oh, done it once. Well, I think a lot of times we try to think of it like, well, why are they saying no? Is it something that they're not used to doing? Is it something new for them? You know, and I think we've learned over the years that if we're asking a child to do something and they're refusing to do it or saying no, like offering a choice, like, oh, well, this is, you can do this now, or you can do this now, or you can do this now, or you can do it later. And I think kind of taking away whatever we're asking them to do and make it more, give them more choice in it. And it really is unique to what's the situation, who's the child. I mean, there is a lot. I mean, it's a loaded question. There's so many things. Is it the first day of school, or are we into like day 45? You know, and I think all of those factors come into play.
This is just coming to mind. At the beginning of my school year, as a teacher, putting my teacher hat on, I always send this sheet out to the parents so that they know how I handle kids and behaviors in the classroom. And at the beginning of the year, I am very instructional. I am very nurturing. You know, it's all about teachable moments, and this is for fifth graders. And it's all about, you know, well, we're not going to do it this way. We're going to try it this way because in fifth grade we do this, blah blah blah. And it's all about those teachable moments. But you know, January and February start to hit, and we've talked about this enough times. I need you to actually like follow the expectation, and then things become a little bit stricter because we've had all those teachable moments. They know right from wrong. They know how to make good choices. And then by June, I'm like, honey, we've talked about this. And I'm like, definitely firmer and treating them more like sixth graders by the end of the school year, where my tolerance is much different. And so is it the same or is it different for kindergarten where, I mean, it's at the beginning, you're certainly going to be a little bit more nurturing and instructional.
For sure. I mean, the end of the year is much different than the beginning of the year. And I think a lot of it's how you phrase your question too. I mean, if you're at home and you say, you want to go pick up your room now? Well, what child isn't going to say no?
Right.
You know, so you've got to think about how you're wording your question, or give them a choice where both, you know, ends or what you're looking for.
So do you want to clean up your room before dinner or after
exactly.
dinner?
They still have a choice, but you are giving them. You're still getting what you need to see in the end.
Or it's time to clean your room now, then we're going to go outside, you know, and I think putting it that way. And sometimes the kids say no, you're just like, I see you need a minute. Like I see, you know, and, you know, giving them some time and then they can make the decision. Like, all right, I'm ready now. And usually that's a quick kind of thing. You say, okay, I said no. And sometimes if parents have reacted to one way or teachers or anybody's reacted to them one way, they're expecting that reaction. So when you have that calm, I mean, your energy is everything. If you're like, no, you're going to go do it right now. Well, that's just, I mean, once you start a power struggle with a 5-year-old, you've already lost, right? Like, you need to give them the time that they need to do it and then say, well, when are we going to do this? And frame that conversation around it. And maybe recognize why they're feeling, oh, I see you're feeling like you don't want to do this right now. This is why we have to do this. Like, we have to clean your room so we can put your clothes away and then we can go outside and play. And I think, and they are capable of understanding all of those things.
And that's an important thing to point out, is that they are capable of understanding. 5-year-olds are capable of a lot. And I feel like as a parent, when my kids were younger, I didn't often know what they were truly capable of. Like, I was still helping my son when he was 3 years old to put his snow pants on. And the next thing I know, as I'm helping him and he's starfish on the floor, okay, Mom, help me out. My 18-month is over there putting her snow pants on. And I'm like, you can do that? So I think a lot of it is like understanding what they're actually capable of. And so as parents, a lot of times we should just be like letting them try things. And they can show us whether they're capable or not. And one of the things that I know that is a super struggle at home, like my kids were able to have snack whenever they wanted to. And sometimes we would start a snack and then we'd go play the game and come back and have snack, and it'd be a little bit like grazing, and but once we got closer to the kindergarten age, it doesn't happen that way in kindergarten. And so, like, talk to me a little bit about like snack and setting time limits and opening packages. Like, do they do their own juice boxes? Are you there to help them? Like, what is helpful for us parents to know before sending our kids to kindergarten for snack time?
They definitely have to learn how to have a sit-down time to eat snack, to eat supper, eat lunch. Unfortunately, the kindergarten day is very packed full, and we don't have the luxury of letting them have all the time that they need to finish. It is, and there are only, so many hands as far as teacher hands go to help all the students. So they, on day one, start learning how to, push back the ears on the milk carton themselves. And my rule is whether they're getting dressed to go outside or opening their snacks is I don't help unless I see them try first.
Right.
As long as I see them try, then I can either go over and help them do it in a different way or, go do it for them. It gets to be hard because, yes, those milk cartons are very hard.
Oh my gosh, sometimes they're hard for us adults.
And sometimes they come in and they've just never tried before.
Right.
So, like, you got a pack of, like, gummies or something, and you're like, hey, look, there's a little slit here. And, like, they are, like, filled with joy. Just, I did it. I said, so you can do it by yourself.
They want to do things by themselves, but they have to be taught how to do it.
And a lot of time, especially in this day, like, where we're all on the go so much, it seems, it's like we're doing those things out of convenience. But what is really helpful is you just try to do it, see? And teaching them how to do it. And then guess what? Your time's going to be left free because you don't have to open everything because they've learned how to do it. And that's even like they come in with the new lunch boxes and the new thermoses or the new water bottles, but they've never used them before. So, go on a picnic or have a picnic in your living room or even at the table, like lunch, having them practice having lunch around the table or outside with all the new things that kids get for those first days is super helpful because it does give them that independence.
Yeah, and that little extra practice of using all of those new things. And I remember when my son was always stressed out about the first day of school with kindergarten, and so we would go practice on the playground, and we would bring the picnic lunch so that they could practice with their lunchbox, and they would know put the backpack on. What does it feel like? Throw a sweatshirt in the backpack, and they'll go to the playground, and just practice on the playground, get them a little bit more familiar with it. So I think
probably becoming familiar with the rules of your school because all schools have different rules for the playground. And I think with kids, like if they go on the playground and they do something that they're not, like if I take my kids, but like we don't do that during school, but when we're there, they're allowed to do it. But they just understand that there's a difference. Well, when you're here with all the other kids, it's not safe to go up the slide. But when we're here and it's just us, you can go up the slide. And I think just like them understanding the differences, that different rules apply when you're with your parents, when you're at school, when you're with your teachers, when you're at the grocery store. I use that example all the time about standing in line, waiting for line. So much we have to practice patience, so, having that delayed gratification is great. Standing in line, taking your kids to the grocery store so they have to stand in line. I can't go in front of, Jess at the grocery store. Like, they'd say, no way. Or that's the biggest thing. They leave the line and they want their spot back in line. Oh, that is so hard for kids. And I say, that's when I'm like, if I'm at the grocery store and I forgot to get milk, I can't say, I was here, I'm coming back in line. Like, the person in back of me is going to be like, no, you forgot something. Because that's the way the world works.
Very true. Excellent example. Very true. And I love it that you bring up that 5-year-olds are capable of understanding that certain behavior is appropriate at home, it's not appropriate in public, it's not, it might be okay at Grammy and Grampy's, but it's not okay in school. They're capable of understanding the differences and understanding, the different locations and behaviors and expectations. So that's an excellent example. I feel like we've hit a lot. Have we missed anything? Like, can you guys think of anything else that you might want to share? Because I feel like we've hit a lot.
Well, I think one other thing that I can think of is that you and your child's teacher are really a team, especially in kindergarten, especially at these formative years, these young years, whether it's like even a pre-K or kindergarten, like that's your first child's experience at school. It's really working with the teacher. So like if they're having a bad day, it's super helpful if I get a note or an email like, it was a rough morning. Like it tells me, okay, they are going to need a little extra today. You know, I can't give a little extra to everybody every day, maybe in that same scope. But if I know, oh, they went to bed late, and it's just that little, like being just as transparent with the teacher is just so helpful. Because then afterwards, it's like, you know, if I have to make a phone call or an email, 9 times out of 10, it's like, oh, well, this happened. Oh, well, this happened. And if we just would have known that going into it, it could have been like, all right, we need to do this to help support, or we need like, you know, a buddy to help today. Because we do have those resources available in the school if we know. But if we don't know, which is so easy, you have a busy morning, you're like, oh, they're fine, they'll be fine. But even just like a quick email, quick note, and it doesn't even have to be like, this is all the details of what happened. We get it. Like, we know that that's not always achievable, but just like a little something is helpful.
That's an excellent point. I have had parents email me saying, oh, you know, Grandma or Grandpa's super sick and we're super worried, so if he's distracted. And as a teacher, I literally make decisions based on that email.
Absolutely.
And if I see that so-and-so is not paying attention during that lesson, if I just found out that his grandparents are sick and I'm going to let that slide.
Right.
And I might choose to ignore certain behaviors because I know that he's super distracted. Whereas if I didn't get that email, I might be focusing, you know, and prompting him to focus a little bit more. So that's an excellent point. It's super helpful.
And sometimes we can take out books or do different activities to help support that child, because lots of times whatever one 5-year-old is going through, at some point another kid in their class might be going through it.
Very true. Yeah, excellent. Can you think of anything else? I feel like we've done it all. Did we forget anything?
There's a lot.
There is a lot. There is so much.
I know when I sent my kids off for their first days, like I was also like scared and nervous and feeling all of those feelings like as a parent, right? And I think sometimes we can put those feelings like on our kids almost.
So true.
Like they can be like, if you're scared, if you're crying, if you're nervous, I get it. I felt all the things. But I think sometimes our kids will start to feel that because of the way we're feeling. So instead of that, it's like being really excited, like, oh, it's your first day of school. What friends are you going to meet? Like, do you know anybody? And I think just being really excited, because they're really excited, but they're really nervous. So are we. And I think having the kids like build up that excitement. And then when they get home, it's not like, what did you do today? But giving them some downtime, because I think that's really important after the full day that they have. And then, who did you sit with at snack today? And I think asking those small questions instead of those big, broad questions, you're going to get more dialogue and conversation. Because how many kids say, nothing, it was boring, like so easily. I mean, my own kids, I'm like, wait, I know you did this, this, and this. Like, I know these are things you did today. And like, they forget because it's a lot. It's a big day. So just starting small, not right when they get off the bus either. Like, I think they need that.
But it's important that you do have those conversations.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can't just let the whole school day just go away when the kids get off the bus and go on to something else. They need to know that what they did in school is important. Open those folders and look at their papers for the day. Talk to the kids about what they did. I mean, it's real important that you show them that you are interested in what they did, what's important.
Yeah.
The school's important.
Value.
And it can quickly become your dinner time conversations. And I get like you might not be able to have dinner every night around the table, but even just like dedicating 1 or 2 nights, these are going to be nights that we all sit down for dinner together. And then like just sharing like what was something good that happened to you today? You know, what was something, did anything make you feel sad today? You know, what's something you learned today? Like what's something you might learn tomorrow? Like, and I think kids just being asked questions and giving them the think time, you'll be amazed. You will be amazed with what they say. Because, I mean, we say it to all the parents, like, your child is going to learn a lot in kindergarten, but you are going to learn so much about your child, too. It's really just such a magical time.
Yeah, those are excellent points. And I remember dinner around the table was always super important for me and our family. That's just what we did. But not only just learning about your kid, but learning about their friends, and learning about who they're buddies with and who they hang out with, and social issues that might have come up, and something we might talk about. Well, how might you handle that differently next time? And I agree; those are excellent points. Yeah, and I also find that the ride to and from soccer practice.
Oh, absolutely.
In
the car.
when you're in the car, and they don't have all eyes at the dinner table staring at them, waiting for their answer. It's a little bit less intimidating. So those car rides to and from activities are also great opportunities to ask them those specific questions. So, can we think of anything else? I feel like that was a
We
lot.
talk about a lot.
And that's all good because there's a lot to learn, especially from these two awesome teachers. And I try to think about my life as a parent and as a teacher, and there is a lot. And I feel like parents are trying to do their very best to help their kids to be successful, but sometimes we don't always know. I'll give you a specific example. In the summertime, my kids, we never spent time. We would read books like when it was bedtime. And books have always been a part of our lives, but I never made them read. It was always something like, oh, let's just do it. Let's cuddle up on the couch, read a book together. And I spent time with my kids outside doing arts and crafts. And then one summer, my kid was in second grade, and he dropped 4 reading levels. And I was like, we're never doing that again. We're never doing that again. But that's because I thought I was doing what I was supposed to. We were making, we were cooking, we were, creating habitats for salamanders out in the front yard, making lemonade stands. And I thought, if you'll learn all about that in school, don't worry about it. So
it's a balance.
It's important, I just think, to know.
Those experiences, though, are something that are just so valuable, though. And the relationship that, you really strengthened in doing the different things. I think that's just super, super important. And the conversation and the dialogue that you had while you were doing all that. You just didn't shoo him on his way to go do whatever he wanted to do on his own. You were involved with him and interacting. And I'm assuming now that probably your son has caught up with the reading level and everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. And I don't think that would have happened if you weren't having some of these other conversations
Absolutely.
too at the same time.
Absolutely. But I just feel like parents just need to have an open, what can we do to help our kids specifically? Because we might be going in one direction when we should be, and I like the word balance. I think you're right. I do think we need to balance between all of those things.
Yeah.
But it's all through the conversation and the reading and the exposure and just put all those different things together, and that's how they're going to be successful. And knowing that somebody really values them and is interested in what they're doing, and they're not just being a bystander to the parent, just watching the kids. You have to be involved with the kids.
Or just telling them to go do it.
Yeah, and there's a very big
because they might not
difference.
know what that actually means or looks like.
I mean, children need modeling. Children aren't born knowing how to play with dolls and pretend food or cars. They have to be shown a model, whether it's with peers or with parents or older siblings. It just isn't instinctual. How to play with those types of things. They have to be taught how to do that.
I agree. I do feel like when my kids were younger, I might have modeled too much. I sometimes feel like allowing them to have their own curiosity. I should say with my first, because I think the first is really a science experiment for all of us. And with my first, I felt like I had to model all of these things, and I wish I had given him more And I did give him some playtime. Like, he was all about, the farm and the animals and the tractors and doing all of those things, the imagination, the imaginary play. I think I wish I had given them more independent playtime. Like, to just go explore for longer.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. But I always felt like I should be included with that. Do you know what I mean? And I did, but again.
Well, I think it goes back to balance. Because
Right.
I think there's some families, they don't get down. They're like, that's child's play. That's their thing. This is my thing. I'm cooking dinner. And really just taking even 5-10 minutes to say, like, especially if they're, I want you to play with me. Well, I'm doing this, right? We're all busy. But I think just giving them, like, all right, I'm going to sit down with them for 5 minutes of play and then say, now you're going to play by yourself for 5 minutes and I'm going to come check on you.
Perfect.
And that
or
especially,
to have them help you make supper.
Oh,
to get the
absolutely.
children
I used
involved.
to love
Right.
that. Yes, I used to love that.
yes, kids love that.
I know, right? Oh my gosh, I used to love my kids would just chopping vegetables and even just stirring something. They always loved it.
Right. I know we talked about the lunch boxes and things, but I think also like kids putting on their coat all by themselves, kids zippering their coats. I mean, a lot of times they start kindergarten and they might not necessarily have those things, or tying their shoes. If 20 kids come in your class and none of them know how to tie their shoes, it's going to take me how long to tie all of their shoes. So I think being mindful of promoting independence. We don't expect kids to be able to tie their shoes, to be able to zip their coat, but again, having them try to do those things. And some kids know how to do it, they just haven't been taught how to do it, or they haven't had enough times to button their coat.
Mm-hmm.
And once they learn how to do it, they are able to do it, and then we have a lot more recess time.
and to give them the time to try on their own. It's going to take a child a lot longer to dress themselves to go outside than if you just quickly threw the coat on. But you have to kind of plan out what you're going to do and fix your schedule so that you can allow them some
Yes.
independence to try to get that coat on themselves. So many times in nursery school, and some of my students went down as young as 2 years old, so like the 2 and 3 year olds, and the parents would come in and immediately start putting their coats on and everything for them to go home, and it's like, look at them, I'm like, well, you know how to do this, they can do it, and they know how to put their coats on, and it's like, well, there's no way I can dress 10 3-year-olds on my own. I said, yeah, they know how to do it, but they had to be taught, okay, we need to put the snow pants on first, then we put the boots on, otherwise everybody's putting the mittens on the very first thing, and they can't put anything on.
Right.
So I mean, they have
Really
to be taught. Yeah.
Right, explicitly teaching them how to get dressed, especially, for
but
winter gear.
But as a parent, I know it's a lot quicker just to throw your kid's coat on and go out the door, but we need to give them the time to do it and not always be so hurried.
And once they're the kindergarten helper with the zippers and everybody wants to be that helper.
Yeah.
So when they're able to do those things, they just have so much pride in the smallest things. It really does make you look at the world so much differently. Looking at the world through a child's eyes. I know there's so many quotes about that, but it's so special. It's why we love doing what we do with the little kids.
It's true. It's very true. So, on that note, are we good? Do we need to add anything else?
I think we said read, right? Just reading,
Read,
opens
talk,
up,
talk.
right? Opens up such a world
Yes,
for your
excellent.
children.
Well, I so appreciate the time. You two have been awesome resources, and so I so appreciate that. So thank you for joining us today.
We appreciate you being our neighbor and helping us. Because it's truly a village, right? We
It
all work together to
absolutely
make it
is.
happen.
Very
Those
good.
relationships.
So thank you. Hi, I hope that you have enjoyed my chat with Janelle and Melissa. I hope that you found it very informative. If you found value in our conversation, go ahead and subscribe, hit like, follow us, share this video with other moms and dads that might benefit from some of the information. It all shows support. You're not going to get junk emails from me. And I enjoyed talking with them, and I hope you don't mind my wet hair look. I got drenched on the way home. We've had some major thunderstorms while we were videotaping and on my way home. And Sai now wants to go outside. So I'll go take care of the dog, and I look forward to our next chat. Thank you for joining us.